Greetings, Kerbonauts! This is Kerbal Space Program. I'm Bob Fitch, and this is episode number 14 of Project Odyssey, in which we need to go back to the end of last episode. At the end of that episode, I was launching a satellite to head over to Duna to do the Kethane scanning over there. And you can see here that I have separated out this launch where I have a kind of a normal view, normal speed version of it in the main window, but I do have a little sub window there. Now, what you might notice about that sub window is that I have not cut away from that one. It is going at 4 times normal speed, while the one that's in the main window is going at regular speed, 1x. And the reason I'm doing that is to show that there's no editing funkiness, no trickery going on. So when I tell you what I'm doing, you will have no choice but to believe me. And what I'm doing is launching directly to Duna. I didn't even look out at the map. I've taken a guess. Well, now I've looked out at the map. But when I launched, I took a guess that just after sunset, where Duna happened to be, I would probably be able to launch and make our way over there. And it's looking like, sure enough, it is going to work. All I did was lift off and start going, and there we go. We had a quick moment there of an intercept, but I do need to back off with RCS just a tiny bit, and there, now we have our intercept. Now, there might be some people who are going to say to me after they've seen this, like, man, I can't even get to the moon sometimes, much less get to Duna as easily as you just made that look. Or maybe they're okay locally, but you can't get to Duna. So I thought that what I might do is give you a quick little look at how it is that I know that I can do what I just did and exactly how come I did it. So if you look here, you can see that Duna is right there, and here's Kerbin. Now, the basic idea here is that when you are looking at a line that's tangential to your orbit here around the sun, which is right here, so a line like this, you are basically pointing at sort of where you're going to end up. So if I were to have anything over here, like say one of these satellites was actually a spaceship I wanted to fly toward Duna, and if I went prograde and it was going around here like this, in this direction here, the normal takeoff, counterclockwise direction, if it were to start burning in this direction, because this is the same direction that the planet is moving, that is going to push out as if the planet itself were pushing out its own orbit. It's going to push out the far side of the orbit, which is exactly what you want. It's going to push it out toward Duna. So if I happen to have a ship right about here down on the surface, there's my mission control now. It's way over there because we've already gone past it. But if it happened to be right around here and I take off, then what's going to happen is it's going to take off like this and end up coming around in this direction, which is going to put it directly in the path of the way that the planet itself is moving, which is what I want. And I know that because Duna is over here, when it's over in sort of this general area right over there, that's when you want to make your launches. That's your launch window, in other words. That's when you want to make your launches to go to Duna. You can do it anywhere from like here all the way up to there. It's just going to be a different amount of fuel. It's going to be more or less fuel depending upon where it is over in this window at the time that you make your launch. So if we summarize that, basically you get it to where Duna is over in this area over here. You get your planet so that your mission control is on the back side of the direction you're traveling, and then you just lift off going normally like a normal old lift off, but you keep going. You don't actually try to orbit, you just keep on burning, and eventually you will escape Kerbin's orbit, and then your apoapsis is going to continue pushing out until it intercepts. It's actually very, very simple. Now, what do you do if Duna is not over here in the launch window area? Well, you wait. You wait until it is in the launch window. And if you don't wait, then you better be prepared to spend a lot of fuel trying to get to your target. So I just came in here to check on things and see where I was in terms of all the different objects that I have going around doing all the different things, the space station and all these different things. And I was trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do next? And I know I have these TDRS-C satellites that I no longer need orbiting, and the idea was to decommission them, just like how you might do if it were real life. In real life, because real life doesn't have single body physics like KSP, this orbit wouldn't be nice and circular around here. The orbit would actually be kind of wavy if it weren't keeping itself in its perfect position by constantly using a tiny bit of fuel, a little burst here, a little burst there, and that counteracts the fact that the Earth and the Moon and the Sun are all affecting the objects that are orbiting around the real Earth all the time. Well, I don't have that, but I do like the idea of simulating that sometimes. So one of the ideas, like I said in a previous episode, was that I would decommission these TDRS-C satellites by pushing them into the higher graveyard orbit and then saying, okay, I'll let their battery run out and I'll take them out of my tracking and it'll be just a little more realistic. Well, when I came out here to check on things, I noticed that a deep space ComSat was missing. I have no idea where it is. If you look through my list over here, you can see that I have my TDRS-Cs in my scanner, Odyssey station, some moon scanning satellites for communications, moon scanner, the scanner at the asteroid. We have our new TDRS D1 and D2 communication satellites, and then everything else is on its way to Duna. Well, you can see Deep Space ComSat here now, but that's because I just got through launching a brand new one. If we move out here a bit, we can see what we have in flight. This is my my Deep Space ComSat that is supposed to help with the Duna communications later. This is the one that is currently dropping into a lower orbit closer to the sun, which will slow it down and therefore bring it back or speed it up and bring it back over here sooner. So when we finally get back here, Kerbin will still be back here somewhere in the orbit, and that'll be the one in front of Kerbin. And then, and there's the scanner for the asteroid, then we can see that over here we have Deep Space Com 2, which will end up going around faster because it is in the lower orbit, not the higher one like this one. Or wait, I keep getting those backward. But in any case, you get the idea. We have Com 1 and Com 2. One went lower, one went higher. One will get back here quicker. One will be back here slower. One will be in front, one will be behind. They'll be on orbits that are just along the same way Kerbin goes. Then we have the Duna Cathane Scanner and the Duna Communications and the Duna Network. This is the one that will be outside the Duna orbit, and this will be inside, or not the Ike orbit. This will be outside the Ike orbit. This is inside the Ike orbit. So it was just missing this ComSat, and so I launched another one. I'm not going to show it, but trust me, it was just gone with no clue as to where it went. And this was just a regular old launch that you've seen before. So I'm not bothering to show that. I can show you what it looks like real quick here, but it's basically the same thing. See, it's got that larger fuel tank and the two communication satellites there. It doesn't actually have an antenna because out here it's too far away from anything to need an antenna. We got the cooling and the solar panels out and everything. I did everything already basically. So we're just waiting for it to finally get back around into position, which is 362 days from now, at which point I will use up a minuscule 400 meters per second compared to the amount of fuel I have. That ended up being way more than I really needed to worry about. I could have done it with one fuel tank. I guess I overestimated how much I would need.
Should be here within a few days. And then there's the fuel situation. If we don't have a Cathane drill tested, deployed, and running within 2 weeks, then we're not going to be going anywhere anytime soon. I have Hadfield in the fuel warehouse checking on quality and levels. It's not good. And speaking of Hadfield, Neil sent me his test results. Neil's doing his best, but he's not a real doctor. He thinks there's something wrong with him, and he can't determine what it is. The results are just strange.
Hadfield didn't get swapped with an evil double of himself while in the alternate universe, did he?
No, that only happens in television shows.
15,000 liters in that one? That is just not enough. Oh dear, oh dear. Computer, turn on something to make me happier. Something for while I'm working.
Come my little friends as we all sing a happy little working song.
Working song, la 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 la. Another 15,000 liters. 50,000 liters. Ooh, that's much better. They'll be very happy to know we still have this one in supply. Ooh, another 50,000 liters. Well, this should last a few more weeks at least. Hopefully we'll be able... Whoa. I feel weird. What's going on? This is strange. Computer, tell me what's happening.
Detecting an unknown energy signature of unknown origin.
Ugh.
Recommend evacuating the area immediately.
Can I at least assume that we believe this might have something to do with his longer exposure to the wormhole energy?
Yes, I'd say we should go with the simplest explanation, and right now, that's it. He was in there much longer than the rest of us. There is no telling what effect that might have had on him.
Should we be worried? Is there any risk to the mission or the rest of us?
Too early to tell. Neil is waiting on the test results, and then we might run some more before we can really know.
Well, obviously keep me appraised of any changes in the situation or his condition.
Sanitation cycle complete.
Thank you, computer. Deactivate the sanitizers.
Commander, there has been a disturbance in the fuel warehouse.
All right, I'll check it out. Hadfield? Hadfield! Hadfield, are you okay? Come on, buddy, wake up. Wake up, Hadfield. Bill to medical.
This is Neil.
Hadfield's had some kind of accident here in the fuel warehouse. Come immediately.
I'm on my way.
Computer, what's the subject's condition?
Vital signs weak but stable.
Come on, buddy. We need to get you into the isolation chamber. Computer, run a full scan on the subject.
No foreign material detected.
Okay. How about check energy readings?
Unknown energy signature detected.
Analyze the energy signature.
Unknown energy is breaking down subject's biomatter. Process will be irreversible in 8 days.
Wait, are you saying Hadfield's going to die?
Affirmative. Subject will expire in 8 days.
Well then, begin a level 3 diagnostic on this tissue sample. I want a status report and some ideas how we can solve this. Neil, go first.
Well, Hadfield has regained consciousness. He's stable. His condition is unchanged, though. He has 8 days to live unless we can think of something.
Are you still running any tests, or are we all out of options?
Yes, I have one last test running now. After that, I'm out of ideas.
What will it tell us?
It's a deep genetic scan to see if his chromosomes have been compromised.
And when will that be complete?
Actually, it might be any moment now.
Okay, we'll wait for the results unless anyone has any other ideas. Okay then, Valentina, what's the status of the fuel shortage in the drills?
The tests are complete. We're ready to deploy them. There's a tiny patch near here, but it will only give us about 1 or 2 more weeks of fuel. After that, we'll need to be getting it from Moon or Minmus. According to the moon scans, the concentrations there are 100 times greater than on Kerbin.
I've been working on a refueling system. The plan is to launch recoverable fuel tanks and a refinery to the moon. A drill in the surface will extract the methane. We'll refine it in orbit and then deorbit the tanks into the ocean off the coast. A small boat will recover them, returning the fuel here, and the entire process will actually be quite efficient, despite how complex it all sounds. Go ahead, computer.
Deep genetic scan complete.
Excellent. Neil, you take Joseph and Kessler and check it out right away.
Yes, sir.
Subject's DNA is deteriorating at a geometric rate.
Oh, that doesn't sound good at all.
Don't worry, Hadfield. We'll figure something out. So, does anybody have any ideas?
Well, let's start with the obvious. Is there anything that we could fabricate and give to him that might stabilize him?
Computer, can anything stop this process?
A stabilizing agent may slow the deterioration.
Which compounds could we use for something like that?
Trimethylhydrazone, dimethylcobridin, and methylhydroprimetate.
Methylhydroprimetate might work, but I don't think you would like the side effects very much. I think we should consider dimethylcobridin. That one would be a sure cure. Computer, where can we locate dimethylcobridin in this universe?
Dimethylcobridin can only be located in sufficient quantities in the upper atmosphere of Joule.
Wow, Joule, that's too far away. We don't have that long. Maybe we could use trimethylhydrazone just as a temporary measure. It's not going to last as long. It's not a permanent cure. Computer, where can we find trimethylhydrazone?
Trimethylhydrazone can be located in sufficient quantities at the poles on Minmus.
Alright, let's all just head back to work right now, and I'll go make my report to Krantz. We'll see if we can figure something out, Hadfield.
Computer, begin long-range scans of Joule and Minmus for ideal landing zones.
Trimethyl what? That's not important. All that matters is we need to get it from Minmus, and we have 8 days.
And can we get there, harvest it, get back, refine it, and administer it to Hadfield before it's too late?
Unclear.
And what if we don't bring back enough?
Yes, I know, it's a risky mission if we want to do it cheaply.
So basically, we need to send a whole lab to Minmus, refine it in orbit, and probably send Hadfield as well, or else we risk not administering it in time, or not bringing back enough to save his life.
Sounds about right.
Well, we're not going to skimp on this for Hadfield. We're going to do this for him, and I don't care what the cost is. Everybody gets back home safely. And then what about Joule?
Well, a tiny amount is all it will take. 1 canister will be enough, but we can send 2 missions with 2 canisters each. That should be enough to keep Bill happy about redundancy, and frankly, I don't think we can skimp on this one either. If we fail, Hadfield won't survive to a second Joule launch window. The trimethylhydrazone from Minmus will only slow down the degeneration to buy him about a year at best.
So we'll start the Minmus mission today and the Joule mission tomorrow. We'll split the team and get 3 working on each mission, with everybody else helping across both. Then for Minmus, we'll need an orbital science lab, lander, and return capsule. And for Joule, we'll need automated return canisters and the most optimized flight plans we can possibly come up with. Stop everything you're doing. We have new mission orders. Hadfield's medicine can only be made from materials that are located on Minmus and Joule. We'll continue the Kethane missions, but our first priority after that is getting what Neil needs to cure Hadfield.
Well, there are a lot of missions coming up in the future here for Project Odyssey. We now have to go to Moon, Minmus, Joule, and Duna, as well as keeping track of all these satellites, including these that I have threatened a couple times now to decommission the TDRS-C class satellites. Well, it's finally time to do that. I want to clean this stuff up before I actually go ahead and start doing these new things like going off to Minmus in order to save Hadfield. There's only RCS on these things, and so what I have to do is switch to the TDRS satellite and then use its RCS to basically go as if it were an engine, just really slowly. Aim prograde, and away we go, hitting the H key and powering up the RCS until we have a nice orbit that's out a little bit further than geosynchronous orbit, and therefore it will be out in that graveyard orbit that I've talked about a few times. One interesting thing to note about using RCS when you are out at the map view like this is it doesn't actually function unless you have your nav ball open. If the nav ball is open, it'll work. If you close it, then it doesn't work anymore. So that's why I have made sure that my nav ball is open, and that allows me to power up that RCS. Then after that, we pull in our solar panels so that I can forcibly make it drain all of its electricity and therefore go decommissioned, essentially. I don't want the remote tech to actually be able to use it for communications if I'm theoretically going to be decommissioning them. I accidentally let it run out of power before I changed its type to debris so that it wouldn't show up in tracking. I can fix that with a quick reload right here after editing the quick save file to change the type from probe to debris. And that was a little bit of a mistake. We need to remember on the TDRS-C2 to rename it from the pod before we let it run out of electricity. So TDRS-C1 has now been completely depleted of electricity. It is no longer functioning for remote tech, and it's time to go and do the exact same thing to TDRS-C2. Power up the RCS from wherever I happen to be, let it go around to the opposite side of the orbit, circularize into graveyard, and we're done. Pull in the solar panels once again, let it be depleted of electricity, and TDRS-C2 is offline. We're now checking on the TDRS-D, the new class of satellites for our local and interplanetary communications. Now remember that deep space ComSat had been lost in space somehow, so I had to launch a new one, so I had to set all my TDRS-Ds to point to that. There is still one more TDRS-C class satellite. The TDRS-C3 was previously used as a backup satellite in case C1 or C2 had gone down. Since I have not actually launched a TDRS-D3, I'm going to leave C3 up here as the backup just in case something happens, although we don't really anticipate that. I'll point this one now, instead of at the C's, I'll point it at the D's, and then we'll just tab away and let it sit here all happy. Next up, I'm playing around in my mod viewer again. I'm taking a look at different ideas for some sort of station I could send to Minmus. This idea, however, is going to be really hard to launch in Ferrum Aerospace because of you can't put a fairing around something like that. It would just be ridiculous. Then I throw together a bunch of parts. I'm just looking to see what this stuff might look like. I'm not really sure what I'm going to make yet. This is just experimental. Throw parts together and see what they look like, and once I finally come up with something I like, that's what I'm going to launch. Alright, here we are now in the actual Project Odyssey install. These are all of the parts that I'm loading up now with Odyssey. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's been added. I'm pulling in some things that I've just recently added to my program that does the installation. You can see I had one there that was all black. Obviously there's a missing texture. Ooh, we have one that's zooming up infinitely. I've seen that before. I think I might know what that is, and I should be able to fix that. Another thing here that I've just added, and it's missing textures. This is what happens to me all the time when I bring in these new parts. There will be missing textures, there will be missing model files, so sometimes things won't even show up. We'll get that zooming thing like that there. Anyway, I'm throwing in some ideas here for a stage, not a stage, I guess I wouldn't call it that. I would call it just the engine assembly that's going to be on the space station that's going to head over to Minmus. I'm not really going to be able to do any work on this station just yet though, because you can see I've got all kinds of problems with missing textures, models that are missing bits of their model, and all of that. I don't have all of the parts that I'm going to want in this install yet even. And I've got some edits that I need to make to the configuration files for the parts. Like, let's take that engine assembly for an example. There are some nodes on that are making it really difficult in order to get some of the things to attach. It's a real pain in the butt. I also have gigantic parts like this. I don't want to try to carry something that size into orbit. That's supposed to just be a 2.5 meter. See, here's my 1.25 meter version of my water tanks. That big gigantic one was only supposed to be 2.5 meters. I got to scale that down to the proper size. Anyway, I was saying that engine assembly has some nodes on it where when you try to connect things, it's a real pain in the butt. I'm going to show you here what that's like. and I keep needing to jiggle it up and down to get it to go into the right place, and that is not how I want it to look. See, watch this. I'm fiddling with it, trying to get it to attach. It kind of looks like it's going to work, and then it doesn't. And then I try again, and and then I finally get it. That's what it's supposed to look like down there. That's going to be the engine system for the new station. Anyway, I have a ton of work to do before I can show any more launches because I have all these parts to fix up and a ship to put together. So I'm going to get to work, and until next time, I will see you later, Kerbonauts.